The elevator doors slid open at 11:47 p.m., and Marcus Chen didn't bother looking up. He never did anymore. What was the point? The world he'd been forced to inhabit for the past 18 months was nothing but darkness anyway, a suffocating void that had swallowed his empire, his identity, and every shred of hope he'd once possessed. His cane tapped against the marble floor as he stepped inside, the sound echoing in the empty lobby of Chen Industries. The building that bore his name now felt like a mausoleum, a monument to everything he'd lost. At 38 years old, Marcus had been unstoppable. A self-made billionaire who'd revolutionized sustainable technology, graced magazine covers, inspired millions. Then came the accident. The explosion in his private lab. The experimental battery that detonated 2 feet from his face, stealing his vision in a blinding flash that he could still feel searing through his nightmares. The elevator hummed as it began its descent to the parking garage. Marcus stood rigid, his jaw clenched, his $1,000 suit hanging perfectly on his frame, even as everything inside him felt rumpled and broken. His board wanted him gone. His competitors smelled blood. His therapist kept using words like adjustment and acceptance, as if he could simply adjust to being useless, except that his life was over at 38. The elevator lurched to a sudden stop on the 7th floor. Marcus's hand tightened on his cane, irritation flashing through him. He didn't want company. He never wanted company anymore. The doors opened, and he heard it immediately, the sound that would haunt him for weeks to come. A child crying. Not the theatrical tantrum of a kid denied a toy, but the exhausted, hiccuping sobs of someone too young to carry the weight they'd been given. "I'm sorry." "Buddy," a man's voice said, rough with fatigue but infinitely gentle. "I know you're tired, I know. Just a few more minutes, okay? Daddy's got to finish the 7th floor, then we can go home." The sound of a cleaning cart rattled into the elevator. Marcus smelled industrial cleaner and something else, the faint scent of peanut butter. "Sorry," the man said, presumably to Marcus, though he sounded too exhausted for embarrassment. "Long night." Marcus said nothing. He pressed himself further into the corner, his face angled toward the wall. Go away, he thought. Take your problems somewhere else. The child's crying softened to whimpers. "Daddy, my tummy hurts." "I know, baby. I know it does." The man's voice cracked slightly. "When we get home, I'll make you some toast, okay? Nice warm toast with a little butter." The elevator descended 1 floor. 2. Marcus could feel the man's presence beside the cart, could hear the child's labored breathing. Something was wrong with the kid, really wrong. Marcus had spent enough time in hospitals to recognize the sound of someone fighting just to exist. "Is this your floor?" the man asked as they reached the parking level. Marcus nodded stiffly and moved toward the opening doors. "Hang on." The man's hand, calloused, strong, gently touched Marcus's arm. "You dropped something." Marcus froze. "I didn't." "Yeah, you did. Your wallet. Must have fallen when you got in." The leather pressed into Marcus's palm, and with it came the horrifying realization he'd never even noticed. How many times had this happened? How many things had he lost, simply because he couldn't see them slip away? "Thanks," Marcus muttered, hating how small his voice sounded. "No problem, man. Have a good night." The elevator doors began to close, and Marcus did something he couldn't explain. He thrust his cane between them, forcing them open. "Wait," he said. "What's wrong with your son?" Silence. Then, "How did you—" "I can hear it. The way he's breathing. He's sick." More silence. Marcus could feel the man's hesitation, the weight of a father deciding whether to trust a stranger with his fear. "Leukemia," the man finally said. "He's 7. We're fighting it." Marcus stepped back into the elevator, letting the doors close. "What's your name?" "David. David Morrison." "This is Jamie." "Hi," came a small, exhausted voice. "Marcus Chen," he heard himself say. "I own this building." He felt David stiffen. "Mr. Chen, sir, I'm sorry, I didn't recognize. I'll make sure Jamie stays quiet during work hours. I usually have a sitter, but she canceled tonight and I couldn't miss the shift and—" "Stop." Marcus held up his hand. "Why are you working the night shift while your son is sick?" The question hung in the air like an accusation. David's laugh was bitter. "Insurance doesn't cover experimental treatments, Mr. Chen. Standard chemo isn't working." There's a trial at Stanford, but it costs $40,000 to enroll. So I work the night shift here, drive for a rideshare during the day, and my mom watches Jamie when she's not at her own job. We're at $32,573. Getting close. Marcus felt something crack inside his chest. The elevator, he said suddenly. You fixed it. About 2 months ago, I was stuck for 20 minutes and someone got it running again. That was me, David said quietly. I used to be an electrician before medical bills ate everything. Figured I could help out. You didn't have to do that. It's not your job. No, David agreed. But you were stuck. So I helped. The elevator reached the 7th floor again, David's floor. The doors opened, but neither man moved. My son is 7 too, Marcus said, the words tumbling out before he could stop them. He was 7 when I lost my vision. I haven't seen his face in 18 months. Haven't been to one of his soccer games because I can't stand the thought of him being ashamed of his blind father fumbling around in the stands. My wife left 3 months ago because she said I'd become impossible to live with, and she was right. I have $92 million in the bank, and I'd give every cent of it to see again, but I can't. So instead, I come here at midnight to sit in my office and feel sorry for myself because at least in the dark, everyone's as blind as I am. He heard David's sharp intake of breath, felt the weight of his confession settling between them. Mr. Chen, David said slowly, can I tell you something? Marcus nodded. When Jamie was diagnosed, I spent 2 weeks locked in my bathroom just crying. I couldn't look at him without seeing death. Couldn't hold him without feeling like I was hugging a ghost. Then one night, he came in while I was losing it, and you know what he said? He said, Daddy, I'm still here. That's it. I'm still here. David's voice grew thick. And I realized I'd been so busy mourning what I was losing that I forgot to see what I still had. Every morning he wakes up is a morning I get to be his father. Every smile, every terrible knock-knock joke, every single moment, that's not nothing. That's everything. Something hot ran down Marcus's cheek. He hadn't cried since the accident. Hadn't let himself. You're still here too, David said softly. You're still somebody's father. Still somebody who can change lives. Hell, you're standing in a building that wouldn't exist without you. Your eyes don't work, but your heart does. Your mind does. Your hands do. That's not nothing, Mr. Chen. That's everything. The elevator was silent except for Jamie's steady breathing. How do you do it? Marcus whispered. How do you keep hoping when everything's falling apart? I don't hope it'll be easy, David said. I hope I'll be strong enough to face whatever comes. That's the only hope that never runs out. The hope that we're capable of more than we think we are. And we usually are, especially when we're not alone. Marcus stood there, a blind CEO in his expensive suit, next to a janitor pushing a cart with a sick child sleeping in the corner. In 18 months of darkness, this was the first time he'd really seen anything at all. I'll cover Jamie's treatment, he said. All of it. Stanford, experimental trials, whatever he needs. Mr. Chen, I can't. You can, and you will. But there's a condition. Marcus turned toward where he thought David was standing. I need a favor in return. I have a son who needs his father back. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to be anything except broken. But you know how to keep showing up even when it's hard. You know how to be enough when you feel like you're not. I need you to teach me that. You want life lessons from your janitor? David's voice held disbelief and something else, hope. I want life lessons from a man who knows what really matters. There's a difference. The elevator doors started to close again, and this time, both men let them. David pushed his cart out, then turned back. Mr. Chen, my shift ends at 6 a.m. There's usually coffee in the break room around 5:30. Terrible coffee, but it's hot. If you wanted to come back up before you leave, I'll be there, Marcus said, and meant it. That night, Marcus went home and knocked on his son's bedroom door for the first time in months. He couldn't see Daniel's expression when he opened it, couldn't see if his eyes lit up or filled with resentment, but he heard the boy's sharp intake of breath, felt small arms suddenly wrapped around his waist. Dad? I'm here, Marcus said, his hand finding his son's hair. I'm still here. 3 months later, Jamie Morrison entered remission. David accepted a position as Director of Operations at Chen Industries, overseeing a new initiative to hire people who'd fallen through society's cracks, the formerly incarcerated, the chronically ill, those whom the world had decided weren't worth investing in. And every morning at 5:30, before the rest of the world woke up, two fathers sat in a seventh-floor break room drinking terrible coffee and reminding each other that being broken wasn't the same as being finished. That hope wasn't about seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. It was about trusting that even in darkness, you could find your way forward, one step at a time, especially when someone was brave enough to walk beside you. Marcus Chen never got his vision back, but he learned to see what mattered, and in the end, that made all the difference.